Welcome back to Acosta's Anatomy. In this video, we're going to identify female anatomy and then go over the stages of fertilization. So the first thing I'll point out, this as a whole is the uterus. This is the vagina. This is the cervix. You also have the fallopian tubes or the uterine tubes, which are found here. This is the ovary, which is anchored by the ovarian ligament, which is here number 66. So then if we look at some of the different layers here of the uterus, so you have the endometrium, which is here, the myometrium, which is here, and then the perimetrium, which is here on the outside. So then if you work your way back up here to the top, or here to the front, you have the vagina, and then this is what's known as the lateral fornix. So you have the lateral fornix there, and then this is the cervix. So within the cervix, you have the external os, and then this is the cervical canal. Once you get past the cervical canal, this is the internal os. So then here on the inside, this is within the uterus. And then here at the top, this is what's known as the fundus of the uterus. And then as a whole, this is the body. So this is the body of the uterus. So then if we look at some of the details within the fallopian tube, there are particular regions. So this narrow region is what's known as the isthmus. So you have the isthmus there. And then if you work your way over here within the fallopian tube, you have the region which is known as the ampulla. So within the ampulla, this is the primary site where fertilization occurs. So then if you work your way down this way, this region is what's known as the infundibulum. So this here is the infundibulum. So now let's take a closer look here within the ovary, what's going on. So within the ovary, this is the development of our follicle, which is going to release our secondary oocyte. So that's what's over here. So when we release that secondary oocyte, this is what's known as ovulation. And so that follicle is going to help to nourish that secondary oocyte so it can grow and develop. So let's look at some of the anatomy here on the inside of the ovary. So this is what's known as the corpus luteum. This is the corpus albicans. And then over here we have the development. So you have our primordial follicle here, which is 75. 76 is our primary follicle. 77 is our secondary follicle. And then 78, both of these are our Graafian follicles. So then 79, this is the mature Graafian follicle, which will then release the secondary oocyte here for ovulation. So then once ovulation occurs, then we have, this is the spermatozoa or the sperm cells. So once they fertilize this secondary oocyte, it becomes an ovum, and then it goes through different stages here until it gets implanted here within the endometrium. Now let's discuss the stages of fertilization. So I've already mentioned that over here, this is where fertilization occurs. So you have the spermatozoa fertilizes the secondary oocyte, it becomes an ovum. And then from there, we have the ovum with the pronuclei. So what this is going to represent, so if we look here at the bottom of this, so here on the outside, this is what's known as the corona radiata. So that's these guys here. And then what's over here, this layer is what's known as the zona pellucida. And so you can see this is a secondary oocyte because over here it's stuck in metaphase 2. And then you can also see that first polar body here. So then once fertilization occurs, so this is what's representing here. So this spermatozoa penetrates here, gets through the corona radiata as well as the zona pellucida. It completes meiosis 2, and then we get the formation of our polar bodies there. So then we now have our ovum. So then the next stage over here is number 3. So this is the ovum with the pronuclei. So that's what's over here. So you can see the pronuclei here from the mom and then the pronuclei from the dad. So they have to fuse together here. And then you can still see those polar bodies. So then from there, this is what's going to develop into the two cell stage. So both of these, they're known as blastomeres. So you have blastomeres here within the 2-cell stage, and then in the 4-cell stage, you still have each individual blastomere. So once you get to this point, so once again this matches with this, and then over here as a whole, this is what's known as the morula. So that's what this guy is. So you have the morula, and then you also have the individual blastomeres here on the inside. So these cells, they're just continuing to divide. So then as we work our way along this way, over here, this is where we get the formation of what's known as a blastocyst. So remember, keep that straight. This is a blastocyst. These are blastomeres here on the inside. So this blastocyst has a couple of different layers. So this layer here on the outside, this is what's known as the trophoblast. So the trophoblast is going to be what's responsible for implantation into the endometrium of the uterus. And then this inner cell mass here on the inside, this is what's known as the embryoblast. So this is what's going to be responsible for help forming our embryonic disc. So then the last one here, this is the implanted embryo, and that's what's represented over here. So we're not going to get into the details of all of this, but I want you to know that this is what will eventually lead to the development of the fetus.